Here are some fascinating facts and historical context for Walden and On the Duty of Civil Disobedience by Henry David Thoreau. Walden, 1854. 1. Experiment in Simple Living. Thoreau's retreat to Walden Pond, 1845 to 1847, was not an act of complete isolation but rather an experiment in self-sufficiency. He built his own small cabin on land owned by his mentor Ralph Waldo Emerson and lived there for 2 years, 2 months, and 2 days. 2. Not a total recluse. While Thoreau lived in solitude, he frequently walked into Concord, Massachusetts, to visit friends, attend lectures, and have dinner with his family. His time at Walden was more about deliberate living and self-discovery than complete isolation. 3. Influence of Transcendentalism. Thoreau was a key figure in the Transcendentalist movement, which emphasized nature, individualism, and spiritual self-reliance. Walden reflects these themes, portraying nature as a source of wisdom and personal growth. 4. The Economics of Walden. Thoreau meticulously recorded his expenses while living at Walden Pond, showing that he built his cabin for $28.12, about $1,000 today. He used this to critique the economic pressures of industrial society, advocating for a minimalist lifestyle. 5. Walden Pond is a metaphor. The pond is more than a physical place. It serves as a metaphor for self-reflection, clarity, and depth of thought. Thoreau often describes the pond's changing seasons as a reflection of human nature and personal growth. 6. Initial reception and later influence. When Walden was first published, it was not widely popular, selling only about 2,000 copies in 5 years. However, in the 20th century, it gained recognition as a masterpiece of American literature and a foundational text for environmentalism, individualism, and simplicity. 7. Thoreau's daily routine. He spent his mornings in deep thought and writing, his afternoons exploring nature, and his evenings reading and reflecting. This disciplined lifestyle was a crucial part of his philosophy and how to live deliberately. 8. A response to industrialization. Thoreau wrote Walden during a period of rapid industrialization in America. As cities grew and factories replaced rural life, Thoreau sought to prove that people could live simply, away from materialistic distractions, and still find deep fulfillment. 9. The influence of Eastern philosophy. Thoreau was heavily influenced by Hindu and Buddhist texts, which he read as part of the Transcendentalist movement. His ideas of simplicity, self-reflection, and unity with nature closely paralleled teachings in the Bhagavad Gita and Taoist philosophy. 10. Nature as a living teacher. Thoreau didn't just live by Walden Pond, he saw it as a teacher. He believed observing nature's cycles helped people understand themselves and the broader universe. His daily walks and observations formed the basis of many reflections in Walden. 11. Thoreau's writing process. Although Walden is based on his 2 years at the pond, it wasn't written in real time. Thoreau spent nearly 7 years revising it after leaving Walden, polishing his ideas and crafting the book's famous structure. 12. Walden Pond's scientific importance. Thoreau's detailed observations of the pond, including its depth and seasonal changes, were so precise that modern scientists have used his notes for climate change research. His work is considered an early example of ecological study. 13. A work of social critique. Though Walden is often seen as a personal reflection on nature, it is also a sharp critique of 19th century American society. Thoreau criticizes the obsession with wealth, the mindless pursuit of labor, and the artificial complexity of modern life. 14. Thoreau as a pioneer of minimalism. Long before the modern minimalist movement, Thoreau practiced what he preached. He lived in a 150 square foot cabin, owned few possessions, and argued that material wealth often enslaved rather than liberated people. 15. Emerson's role. Thoreau's mentor, Ralph Waldo Emerson, not only encouraged him to pursue writing but also owned the land on which Thoreau built his cabin. Without Emerson's support, Thoreau's experiment might never have happened. 16. Walden's nonlinear structure. While it appears to be a straightforward journal, Walden is carefully organized to mirror the seasons of life. It begins with economy. where Thoreau establishes his home, and ends with spring, symbolizing rebirth and new understanding. 17. Not a bestseller at first. When Walden was first published, it sold only about 2,000 copies in 5 years. It wasn't until the late 19th and early 20th centuries that it became widely recognized as a literary and philosophical masterpiece. On the Duty of Civil Disobedience, 1849. 1. Origin of the essay. Thoreau wrote on the duty of civil disobedience after spending a night in jail in July 1846. He had refused to pay the poll tax as an act of protest against slavery and the Mexican-American War, which he saw as an unjust expansion of U.S. territory for slavery. 2. Revolutionary influence. Thoreau's ideas on nonviolent resistance inspired later activists, including Mahatma Gandhi, who used civil disobedience as a guiding philosophy for India's independence movement, and Martin Luther King Jr., who cited Thoreau in his speeches during the civil rights movement. 3. Critique of government. Thoreau argued that the government often serves the interests of the powerful rather than the moral will of the people. He believed individuals had a duty to resist unjust laws rather than comply passively. His famous quote, "That government is best which governs least," has been widely referenced in libertarian and anarchist thought. 4. A direct call to action. Unlike Walden, which is philosophical and reflective, civil disobedience is urgent and direct, calling on citizens to withdraw their support from unjust governments. He urges people not to wait for democratic reform but to take immediate moral action. 5. Legacy and social movements. The essay laid the groundwork for peaceful protest tactics used in movements such as the American Civil Rights Movement, South African anti-apartheid resistance, and various environmental activism campaigns. 6. Anarchist and libertarian inspiration. While Thoreau was not an anarchist in the traditional sense, his work has influenced libertarians, anarchists, and small government advocates who see his resistance to state authority as a model for personal freedom. 7. Thoreau's independence. His refusal to pay the tax was not just symbolic. He believed in reducing reliance on the state altogether. He lived off the land, worked as little as possible, and avoided financial entanglements that would make him complicit in supporting unjust systems. Those Walden and civil disobedience continue to be relevant today, inspiring debates on environmental sustainability, political resistance, and the meaning of a fulfilled life. 8. Thoreau's night in jail was brief but powerful. Thoreau's refusal to pay the poll tax resulted in just one night in jail, but the experience deeply influenced him. A friend, likely his aunt, paid the tax against his wishes, securing his release, but the act of defiance sparked his famous essay. 9. A protest against slavery. One of Thoreau's main objections to paying the tax was that it funded a government that upheld slavery. He saw nonviolent resistance as a moral duty against unjust institutions. 10. The Mexican-American War as a catalyst. Thoreau viewed the Mexican-American War, 1846 to 1848, as an unjust conflict aimed at expanding slavery into new territories. His opposition to the war was a key reason for his refusal to support the government financially. 11. Influence on Gandhi and Martin Luther King Jr. Thoreau's ideas on peaceful resistance influenced Mahatma Gandhi, who adapted the concept into Satyagraha, the philosophy of nonviolent resistance used in India's independence movement. Martin Luther King Jr. also cited civil disobedience as a major inspiration for the civil rights movement. 12. The government as a machine. Thoreau famously described the state as a machine, arguing that when the government becomes an agent of injustice, people must act as a counter-friction to stop the machine. This mechanical metaphor remains a powerful image of resistance. 13. Thoreau's call for immediate action. Unlike other reformers of his time, Thoreau rejected the idea of waiting for the democratic process to correct injustices. He urged people to act immediately when faced with immoral laws, refusing to participate in oppression. 14. Anarchist and libertarian influence. While Thoreau was not an anarchist in the traditional sense, his belief in individual conscience over government authority has made civil disobedience influential in anarchist, libertarian, and anti-authoritarian political thought. 15. Resistance to withdrawal. Thoreau didn't just advocate for protest. He believed individuals should withdraw support from unjust institutions altogether. This extended to not paying taxes, avoiding government jobs, and even questioning participation in commerce that supported exploitation. 16. A key text for future movements. Thoreau's essay was widely read in the 20th century by activists and movements for women's rights, environmental protection, anti-war protests, and anti-apartheid resistance in South Africa. 17. The enduring power of one person's stand. Thoreau's essay demonstrates how a single act of defiance, one man refusing to pay a tax, can become a powerful philosophical argument that influences history. His work reminds us that individual moral courage can shape the world. Thanks for listening and watching. Don't forget to subscribe. Like this video. It helps more people find these classic stories. Share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear what you think.